Namaste.
Okay, so before we get started, I want to take pictures.
Okay.
Yes. So I can post them.
She's my booking agent, travel agent, photojournalist, scheduler.
Did you just wave?
Yeah. And I
accidentally hit live. So.
Oh, we're live. Oh, thank you.
all right now. All right.
This is good to know. I'll take an extra picture of you just for that. Okay.
All right. So welcome. And welcome. And welcome. There's something about that word, welcome. It's like coming into relationship. It's opening of a door to move into relationship with something. For some of you, this is your first time. I see quite a few new people, of course, many regulars. So welcome. And I don't know how you got here, by hook or by crook, or willingly or unwillingly. But whatever brought you here is what we're really going to talk about. We're going to enter into, actually we're doing 4 satsangs here, 2 here and 2 in Connecticut, into an inquiry into self-evident truths. That is, truths that are so apparent we don't see them. We don't know they're there. In all aspects of my work, the problems for one who is awakened to the spiritual path and is traveling further is their inability to recognize what is before them extremely obvious but not seen. It's like, for me, I keep losing things. And the way I find them is I bring Satsang in the room and say, I just lost my sandals. She walks into the room and they show up. And they were right there all along. So there is this kind of agreement between us that I just need other eyes to see, or even just to be in the room. And then that which was self-evident but I couldn't see, I could see. So it's kind of what I do. It's not that I do it, actually, it's what happens. What happens with the nature of awakening is we then begin to see not necessarily anything new as much, although there is a newness, but what was already there that we never recognized before. Like right now, how is your breathing? How much do we pay attention to our breath? Of course, we're breathing, right? Otherwise, you would be in a great deal of pain or suffering. So that is really what we're talking about, the nature of what is to be discovered, the nature of what it is to be revealed on the spiritual path isn't so much an attainment as being able to move into relationship with existence as it is, without the usual filters that prevent us from seeing these self-evident truths or recognizing them or being able to move into a relationship with them, and often to learn to welcome rather than reject them. When my awakening happened in 1998, at first it felt like a new thing. But over the years, it's been over 20 years, it's completely clear to me that it's what was here all along. It was just my incapacity to be able to be in relationship, to welcome it, my inability to see the signals of this incredible possibility for being. To recognize how I was living was separating me from that incredible, unspeakable quality of being. So the nature of this, the whole nature of the predicament we find ourselves in, is what becomes possible when we awaken spiritually. In the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the references I use in my work, in the 11th chapter, when Arjuna is being able to, it's called the universal vision or universal darshan, is, Krishna says to Arjuna, but you cannot see me with those eyes. Let me give you the celestial vision. It can only be perceived through other eyes. So this is the same thing. The revelation of the nature of the condition of existence that we're not seeing is so breathtaking, so extraordinary, that you cannot understand why it could be here and you've never seen it before. And that's what creates its self-evident truth. That is the self-evident truth that needs no validation, no body of knowledge or justification or rationalization. It is innate to us. It is the recognition of what's already so. It's the ability to not only perceive, but to experience what it means to have a body, to be in existence, to have a sense of self. A sense of what is actually true, different from what you believed to be true or thought to be true, or without questioning accepted as being true. That's what changes on the spiritual path. It's not the thing we can begin to experience or see. It's our ability to experience or see. That a very essential quality of what I like to say, what we are, that can perceive directly, can experience directly, not through the filter of the mind or the story or the idea of yourself or the world or what's possible, but immediately through the direct meeting of it. That is already here, but we're just not seeing. It appears to be hidden. It appears to be new. It comes. It's been here all along without us noticing it, recognizing it, appreciating it. Why is this? And that's the question. How is it that it became like this? What is it that's keeping this in place, that I can't see it, that it stays hidden? And I see it and then I lose it. Even though it never goes away, I can't access it. I can't find it because of this endless activity of my life or my doingness or my beingness that's obscuring my ability to be here now, to be actually present in that quality of being is presence. It is when the perceiver is no longer whirling, no longer doing, no longer thinking, no longer needing or striving or resenting, no longer trying to protect itself, no longer trying to control the circumstances, no longer trying to make things different, no longer trying to avoid or control your world. When that action, endless activity, quiets, it means we begin the quality of what we are is finding its own center. It's finding the place from which all self-evident truths can be perceived, experienced, and known. I call it silence and stillness. That unchanging quality of us that is not moving, that is simple, that is not distracted, and can begin to perceive that which is obvious but not yet experienced or known. Now, numbers of ways that this happens. Spiritual awakening is nothing but the stopping of us doing, thinking, feeling. It's a momentary pause, interruption in the merry-go-round and the spinning of our identity and our story and our life and who we are and who we aren't and who I like and who I don't like. It is when it stops. And in that moment of stopping, what comes up is something, not something new, something that's actually already here and has been always already here. And we get a glimpse. And you can call it truth. And it's a truth that when you see it or experience it, you know is true. You don't need anybody to validate it, even if you may not understand it, even if you may not actually know how to be in relationship with it. So I want to talk tonight about the orientation that can help us move into our relationship with existence consciously, where we can use our little ego and our little desire or wanting or ideas in alignment with this possible ability to perceive the nature of the reality of what is. And we can do this together because as I sit in this state, I can actually experience what you are. I can experience who you are. In the state of not having any filters, I'm in an intimate relationship with existence. And from that place, I can see the nature of the struggle of both your ability to access that truth, and that is in the way of what accesses that truth. But how do I know that is not in my mind? It is simply in a field of vibration in which you arise, in which I can see what is in the way and what is not in the way, in the unfolding of this same capacity to perceive. Now, I'm not always in this modality. I'm in this modality right here. If you meet me at Starbucks, I'll be in another modality. If you meet me arguing with Satsang, I'll be in another modality. These modalities are all available. None is wrong. None is right. None is proof in itself of what I've come to or what I've not come to. What's proof in itself is your own experience, is your own knowing. That's the only proof that matters. It's the thing that becomes true for you. Then it matters. Until then, it's just like every other object in your life, every other person in your life, every other idea that you've had, every other philosophy or religion or belief that you've had. I know what you are, but you may not know what I am. That's perfectly appropriate. Mostly, we don't know anything but our own story. Watching through the filters of our own idea of self and who people are and what can I get out of them and what do I don't want to get out of them and what am I afraid of and what is it that I need to just be without condition, without demand, without just the recognition of what's so. So I'll say a self-evident truth. Something brought you to this room. Probably not what you think. There are currents and movements in this condition of what is that we are unwittingly writing, thinking it's us, thinking it's my motive, my desire, my ambition, my aspiration. We're just being taken along like Folsom in the stream after a rainstorm. We're just being pushed into this different situation. But in your particular case, as in my particular case, and as every self-aware human individual case, we can align ourselves with these currents. We can hop currents. We can change frequencies. We just don't notice we're doing that. Because the thing that could notice is getting lost in each new frequency. Your good mood or your bad mood. When you're in the bad mood, you've never had a good mood when you're in the bad mood. It's always been bad moods. It's always been the negative, and it is the negative, and the future will be the negative. But when you're in a good mood, there's no negative. There is no bad mood. It's always been good. It is good and always will be good. We don't recognize that we've shifted. We don't recognize that we've just been writing another current because our identity goes with whatever is the story, whatever is the habit of behavior, whatever the clusters of thinkings that we have of negativity about ourselves or other people. Same true in the good mood. We lose ourselves. Now, the good mood, of course, has a greater expansiveness. It has a greater field of perception than the bad mood, which is more contracted. So historically, and in your own experience, you can know that in the bad mood, you pretty much are stuck. You're pretty much caught into a narrow view of yourself and the world and what's possible. So if you can carry that thought with you into the bad mood, then you can get suspicious about the apparent reality of the bad mood, or the bad person, or circumstances, or difficulties, or problems that you are resisting or avoiding or don't know how to be with. You can get suspicious that maybe it isn't what it perceives to be. This is what the Gita talks to. The Bhagavad Gita talks about a yoga, a path which uses the intelligence, which uses the intellect to begin to discern the nature of the error and the nature of the truth as it arises. So part of my teachings is to bring forward a mental or intellectual understanding of the nature of the predicament you're finding yourself in, without perhaps knowing fully what that predicament is, or knowing fully what to do about it, or knowing fully how much it's determining what's possible for you as a human being or as a spiritual being. So there is something living you. There is a mobilizing principle that has brought you here into this room. There is you could say, instinctual or less, perhaps below the level of your consciousness. If you've developed some on the spiritual path, your mind will be aligned with that principle. Your actions will be aligned with that principle. And you will have come here consciously because you felt a call, because there was some either recognition or understanding that this is something I am looking towards, moving towards, recognizing that I wish to deepen for myself, to make more real for myself, so that I can live aligned with that, so I can collaborate with that sense of evolution, that sense of I'm growing, that sense of I'm waking up, that greater sense of being. And with that always comes this inherent self-evident joy, an inherent quality of knowing and experiencing that is the proof for you, the self-evident truth for you that you're making progress. To know you're making progress soothes a part of the soul that wishes no longer to be bound. The part of that essential quality of us that has lost access to the truth of what it is through its own journey, traveling through many lives, through many bodies, through many personalities, through many circumstances. And that loss of access to that essential quality, that essential reality, is the source of our suffering. It's the source of all angst, anguish, dejection, despair, error. See, there's only this. What you're attending to with your eyes or with your heart or with your body is a reflection of what you are. This is the role of any teacher or any guru, is to be that quality of no self that can then allow you access to yourself, your no self, or that essential reality of what you are, the lack of separative identity. But if you look at what you're experiencing right now, if you look into your body or look into your heart or look into the quietude in your mind, you'll be able to get some sense of that which can recognize these self-evident truths. The first one is you have to exist. You can't be into this room unless you exist. This most fundamental, self-evident truth is I am. To be aware of your own existence is the miracle of being a human being. It's the greatest gift of this 4.5 billion year evolutionary process. That consciousness itself can wake up and know itself as consciousness. I exist. I am. It's that quality of our I amness, that consciousness awareness of itself, this little knot, this little churn in consciousness without any content, without any me or mine. That would just empty of all other aspects. That fundamental quality of your own existence. See, that's the first self-evident truth. It is that principle. So just look, Is there anybody who is not in this room? Raise your hand. Just in case you don't get this. Because if you raised your hand, you truly didn't get it. And then, and that's the nature of self-evident truth. It is so obvious, it is so apparent, that's like, seems idiotic to even talk about it. Yet that's what we're talking about. That's what we're pointing to. Something as self-evident as the apparent fact of your own existence. See, this is the elephant in the room. It's like Ganesh elephant, but it's an elephant in the room. It is, if we all just sat in silence of stillness, what would happen for everyone is the experience of that I amness, that quality of being here now. No past, no future, just this, right here, right now. This is not rocket science. Kids will get this a lot faster than we get it. It's a principle that we've been assuming and taking for granted all our lives, perhaps never questioning. Because it's in the questioning, it's when we bring forward this part of our person, this brain, this capacity to take this I amness and think and apply attention and to direct our attention, the quality in us that can attend to something other than what nature would normally have us attend to. Like nature has us attend to what the body likes. So it's attending to its pleasure, it's attending to its pain, it's attending to its problem, it's attending to its solution, it's attending to all these pieces. But if we choose to direct our attention, we're using a true aspect of our intelligence. When we begin to apply that attention and direct it into these questions, the self-evident questions such as, what am I not seeing? What am I not understanding? What am I not experiencing? A question about what seems to be missing. Why am I not in happiness? Why am I in pain? What is the nature of my predicament? What is the opportunity of what's showing up for me right now? What is the possibility of what's showing up for me? What is the danger of what's showing up for me? See, when we start taking that, we start taking a quality that we all have. Every being that has a soul, every being that has this quality of self-awareness has this power of attention, has the ability to apply its will to attend to what it can perceive or can't yet perceive, to understand it, or to learn how to experience or move into relationship with it that wasn't available before. This is a miraculous power. This is why we dominate this world. There's another living organism that has that capacity at the extent that human beings have. Everything else is driven by instinct or experience based on survival or success. But we have something that can operate with no basis in that same way. And this is why we have science. What does a scientist do? It tries to clear the palette of preconceptions and to perceive the nature of why something is showing up like it is. Newton, when the apple fell to the ground, asked the question, why is that happening? Why is the apple coming down? What creates the apple coming down? When I look at the stars, I don't see a down or up or a left or a right, but here I see a down. What's making something go down? It was the beginning of an inquiry into the nature of gravity. It was the beginning of an inquiry into a self-evident truth that couldn't be found if there was not something in the perceiver that was clear enough to ask the question, why does the apple fall? Why am I here? Is the same kind of question. Or what is it that I am? Who am I? Is the same kind of inquiry, same kind of question. What is the purpose of life? How is it that this is all happening? Who's keeping track? Who's in charge? What are the principles that are behind this? What is the ordering? How does it work? And ultimately, how do I live? If I can find the answers to these questions, it really gets down to, how do I live? And how do I live aligned with these truths instead of continuing to live aligned with the error or the unexamined assumptions that I've been living up until now? Even when those unexamined assumptions and the errors of perceptions are causing me suffering, I'm still doing them as if that's going to solve the problem. Trying the next new relationship, the next job, moving to this place or to that place, thinking things are going to be any different. And how come they aren't different? It doesn't come as an apparent recognition. We just know we're suffering. We just know we're still limited. We just know we have not found the right relationship with existence at some level. Although we spend half of our time blaming existence why we haven't found a right relationship with existence. But once we get over that, we can begin to find that we may have something to do with that. So these are the 4 questions, the worthwhile inquiries, without any scripture, without any dogma, without any rules. Who am I? Why am I here? You could be asking, why the fuck am I here? What is the purpose of life? And how do I live? See, we live a shallow, unexamined life. We live on the surface of things. We act out stories and fables. We create an idea of ourselves fabricated out of books or movies. We try to create and dress ourselves up like dolls or behave like we see men behave. We take on attributes trying to define a sense of self, trying to establish an identity, not realizing that every action that we take in that direction takes us further from the self-evident truth. We don't know what it is that wants that identity, that wants to be the princess, that wants to be the rescuer, that wants to be the strong man, that wants to be the beautiful woman who's loved, wants to be rescued by the white knight. We don't know, we can't find, we don't have an obvious access point to that quality of us, because it seems that what's important is all these other people who have created and assembled a self through their own progress of their life. So everybody else is doing it. What's wrong with me that I can't do it? So this idea of taking on an identity, taking on attributes, trying to be a certain way, is by assuming that the models of your life are truer than you are. So we begin to acquire impressions. We begin to acquire strategies. We take on the conditioning that comes from people who live in that false identity, in that false sense of self. And their adaptation, their compensating structures for being in that condition of dissatisfaction or actual suffering. And these get directed to us children, to when we were children. And this is how this whole tradition, human tradition, gets passed on. We get cast out of the Garden of Eden without ever knowing we were in Eden. And we forget how to be. We bring something of that. That's why we can enjoy life. That's why we can learn. That's why we can grow. That's why we can find hope even in hopeless situations. Still draws from that part of ourselves that still resides in that garden. But it is not available to our conscious self in a way that can meaningfully affect our relationship with what's arising. See, this is the self-evident truth. This is our predicament. And a byproduct of that, we create this, who am I? We create this person. We create this assemblages of parts, collection of ways to feel, ways to be, ways to think, preferences, the parts of the collective error, the collective ego that we like becomes what we prefer, and the parts of the collective ego we don't like becomes what we prefer. Those things that are enhance our separate sense of self become preferred, and those that diminish our separate sense of self are those that we do not prefer. And we become tangled up into this web of error, becoming unwittingly an instrument, a channel of the error. And thus we find ourselves. And why do we not change before now? Because we take it for granted. We take it, well, this is how I am. This is how the world is. This is how mom was. This is how my husband is. This is how my wife is. This is how it is for other people. You read the newspapers, you see evidence. This is the agreement. The agreement becomes real. You get enough people agreeing that something is true, it becomes true even if it's a lie. Look at Donald Trump. Look at any politician. Look at any salesman who's trying to convince you you need what they're selling. You always start with, I don't need this. Then their job is to make it apparent to you that you do. So in the same way, I'm doing the same thing. I'm saying that what I am pointing to is actually what you need, but it sounds like another sales pitch, right? But it comes from a different paradigm. And you can't tell that at first because we live in an unexamined self. We live in a place that can't benefit from seeing the self-evident truth. You'll say, well, why? That's so obvious. Why should I bother? I can't see how that will make a difference for me if I meditate. If I start doing an inquiry, if I start changing, living the life I have become comfortable with. And in this age, this time of material prosperity, where our need to survive has been greatly reduced, relatively speaking, there's less imperative to come out of our superficial, shallow, unexamined assumptions, less necessity at the level of survival or even success to come out of our strategies for adaptation, especially when we get older. And everybody, if you notice in the room, is older. We have no kids in the room. The youngest man is running the video camera. Well, by this point, we're hip that something's wrong, and we have learned to some extent what are some aspects of ourselves and or our circumstances or our assumptions that don't work. But have we come down to the essential self-evident truth in a way that it can actually change our lives, in a way that we can actually come into existence more truly? To do so, you have to penetrate into the depths of this inquiry of who am I? So the who are the pieces of your personality. By the way, we have thousands, if not tens of thousands, or maybe even hundreds of thousands of fragments of personalities that we carry along in the stadium of us. Some are in the field and most are in the bleachers. But this question of who am I is going to be, you are everyone. The answer to that will eventually be, I am all these fragments. But of course, you don't want to be all of them because at least half of them you don't like. And you would never share your house with them or a meal with them. You would just assume they were gone. So obviously, the opportunity of the question is to continue to expand into the part of you have not yet been able to recognize is there. How nasty you can be. How awful you are. How mischievous, how manipulative. How you have been succeeding and conning yourself and others to believe in your idea of what's true and not true, that suits your ego, your identity. Our own treachery, as well as our own goodness, as well as our own willingness to allow others to be, the qualities of us that are forgiving, the qualities of us that can be appreciative. All of these things are part of these 10,000 selves. It just depends who's in the stadium, who's in the field. And then that's what we become. Oh, I'm so wonderful today. It's so wonderful being with this person because when I'm with this person, I can feel I'm wonderful. And I really want to feel wonderful because wonderful is almost like being in the Garden of Eden, like through about 4 glass doors, but it's still almost like being in the Garden of Eden. It feels good to feel wonderful. So I want to be with people who make me feel wonderful and not with people who don't make me feel wonderful. And so we define what we will accept. We define the boundaries based on our own experience, not realizing we're doing it, thinking it's me who's feeling wonderful, thinking that the wonderful has something to do with what you did or who you're with or your particular circumstances, not understanding that wonderful is simply one of the possible adjectives for your original nature. It's that quality of feeling wonderful is not dependent, in fact, on who you're with or your circumstances or the favorability of your environment at any one point. That wonderful has something to do with that essential quality of what you are in truth. So this inquiry into who am I is an unfolding of the assumptions and the unexamined orientations or understandings that you've carried your whole life that is preventing you from seeing all the parts of yourself that are continuing, that you've become identified with through the course of your life. All those adaptions, all those strategies, those decisions, those choices that have been made, that have created an idea of you, that I am this person, I am not that person. The nature of this whoing, who am I? The whoing is where we are taking those structures, one of those 10,000s or 10 of those 10,000s or 100 of those 10,000s, and acting upon them or letting them run our thoughts or letting them run what we do or how we feel or what's possible for us. That's the greatest danger. It defines what's possible, what's not possible for us. There are limiters, there are boundaries. So you have to meet them. You have to meet each piece of them. You have to discover the part of you that likes to throw wrenches into the circumstance or into the relationship, even when it's going well. That really doesn't want to be wonderful, wants to be angry and sullen and resistant, wants to be right, wants to be in control, doesn't want to be dominated by someone who makes me happy. Throws the wrench into something that is actually working because other parts of ourselves don't know how to be with it, or it's not relevant to that part of ourselves that wants that charge, that wants that payoff. You see, that's the bitch of this work. Is that even if you awaken to that which can perceive the self-evident truth, experience the self-evident truth, these parts will come back in and take over, lay claim to the piece of you that you have given attention to, that you've empowered, that you have made part of your sense of identity and are keeping in place for protection or enhancement, or to hold on to what you already have so you don't have to change. I hope you're beginning to grasp the depth of the problem and the reason to recognize that you're living in a shallow, unexamined relationship with existence, operating on assumptions that are old and no longer applicable. Those that are keep defining what's possible and what's real or not, and getting in the way of your ability to perceive more deeply, more fully, more totally the nature of the self-evident truth that's actually here right now. When we awaken, we leave the stadium. We leave behind all the 10,000 selves as well as the field for a brief moment or for days or weeks, maybe for years. But inevitably we have to come back because we have a body, and the body is the stadium. The body is what keeps track. Even when the mind stops, even when everything else stops, as long as the body's living, it's keeping the 10,000 cells in place. It's giving them all a seat. So one of the ways of beginning to discover and pry out those parts of ourselves that are still entrenched is to know the body, is to be in touch with your body, is to be able to feel when the relationship between what you're experiencing or perceiving and what is happening in your body at the same time. The ability to be in life in an embodied state of awareness, where attention is not only up here, but also here, because you're going to discover that the body has greater access to what's really going on or not going on than these other parts of ourselves. So a great deal of my teachings is, in terms of answering the question, who am I, is to know your body, to become attuned to it. Because although being disembodied can give you relief from your embodiment, therefore relief from the domination of the stadium of multiple selves, it does not allow you to live it. It doesn't allow for you to take the kingdom of Eden into your life, to come to the joy of being. It is through the embodiment that we make this inquiry real in this dimension. Other dimensions, you don't need you have your subtle body. It doesn't have as many criteria or demands. You don't have to go into the depths of the collective error that makes bodies, that has made human systems act the way they are, and how they go tribal, and how they get selfish, and how they protect their young versus other people's young, how they become oriented to come together, not in any positive way, but as a means to survive and enhance their success in existence. This is the bestiality. This is the program. All our bodies are animal. They come out of the animal evolution, and the bodies that we have are the successful experiments of nature. The ones that didn't work, we don't have. Otherwise, we'd be a lot more hairy. We'd be bent over, have bigger jaws. This body is the one that has been sufficiently developed that consciousness can actually begin to have a say over it. It can choose what it eats or doesn't eat. It can exercise it. The consciousness can actually gain control over the body to various degrees. It can tell it, no, you can't sleep anymore, even though you want to sleep. No, you can't have any more of that food, because if you do, your body will get sick or it will gain weight and be uncomfortable to be in. It'll create suffering. So we begin to gain mastery over our body. This is unique to this species, the human being. Actually, it's not it's the promise. A human being is a promise. It's actually a human ego. The promise is to be able to be a human being. But until then, it's a human ego. So we carry the burden. Evolution took it as far as us. We have to take it the next stage. Once consciousness woke up, we took over from nature. We became senior to nature. We could bring forward a possibility of being in existence or creating a form of being that didn't exist before. And I'll tell you, this has actually been true. If you look in the recent history, you can see that each generation of children is coming with this greater capacity to recognize and know truth. As the material stress of the collective consciousness has been reduced to a great extent comparatively, there has been more freedom for the consciousness to be able to perceive the self-evident condition of being and to hold on to it as it goes into its development, and to have more discrimination. The one that can see as a child that my parents are in a state of perpetual suffering, and I'm not interested in being like that. This quality of being awakened to the condition of what is not true is one of the reasons that highly developed people suffer this life, because they into a world like, how in the hell I got here with these people, and recognizing that they can't take care of me, and they have to find a strategy to come to life on their own. So there is this involving capacity in the human vehicle that is now manifesting itself, that has come from the effort of men and women, generations of men and women who have struggled to conquer the limitations that nature was not capable of conquering. So now we can get together, not just for survival or to assure our success, but for a greater sense of our mutual security and mutual success. so that we're coming out of our tribe, coming out of our towns, we're coming out of our cities, our states, our regions. So most of us are aware of ourselves connected to the whole world. And every one of us who can feel the turbulence and the pain and the limitation and the opportunity and the possibility of this world at this time knows what I'm talking about. It's not just about me now, this person, my city, my family. It's all of us. And the evidence of that is showing up all the time. The first time we all could see a picture of the earth from beyond the earth was the same as when we wake up and we could see the stadium and we're no longer the stadium. So this is the nature of where we are. This is a planetary awakening. And our work is, for these next maybe 100, 600,000 years, is to keep awakening to the condition of who am I, planetarily wise, to discover the unworkable patterns and habits that have been perpetuated from the past, that no longer serve, that no longer are effective. And this is the other part of my work. The other part of my work is our own evolution, our own learning to come to the answers of these questions serves the whole world. Once one of us can awaken, once one of us can hold on to that, once one of us can integrate that and begin to speak it and act from that place, we open passageways in the collective error. It's like wormholes. We got worms that are penetrating into the rigid, stuck structures of the earth of the collective consciousness and giving openings where this unspeakable, self-evident quality of being can penetrate and start lightening up, start expanding the possibilities of mankind. So I'm very clear on this. This is the work I do. And I'm constantly looking for recruits so that you too can take on. I need all the worms that I can get that can penetrate into each unique collection of a piece of the collective error that you carry. And of course, this would be what would be obvious to any awakened teacher who has come to responsibility to what they've awakened to. This would be what they would do too. They may not understand it in the way I understand it. They may not be able to communicate it in the way I'm communicating it. But what I can recognize is that what I do makes a difference. And I can do that when what you do makes a difference. What we all do makes a difference. Because it's like we're coming to responsibility to what it is we are in fact, that which we don't yet perceive or recognize. That we are a manifestation of a principle that has been there since the beginning of existence. To wake up, to be, to experience, to learn, to grow, to be able to live in this world from that quality of being, to not just enjoy, but to fully participate with the opportunity that life is in this plane, in this arena, with bodies and people, in the huge complexity of what it requires to have 7-8 billion people work together. The collective consciousness that becomes possible in that cooperation, in that collaboration. All right, there you have it. We're entering into the first question. Who am I? What in me? There's two parts of this process of uncovering the assumptions that are running you. First, you'll recognize that the thing that's been running you is self-evident, but you just haven't seen it yet. It is something that's there already, waiting for you to perceive. And the perceiving of it shows you its nature and also releases its hold over you. And every time you meet a piece of the who, of the separate identity, of the separate me, the things that have defined me as a separate person, we reveal the what that is inherent underneath that who, that whatness, that what is, that's what so, that we are. So every time we encounter a piece of the who, of the self-evident structure that we haven't been questioning or haven't noticed or haven't come into relationship with, we open space in that idea of ourself. We open it up. And the more the whatness, the more our ability to perceive what's still hidden, what's still not available to us. And that's the process. Every time we succeed in uncovering a structure that we are creating that's defeating our ability to recover our original nature, we reclaim that piece of our kingdom, they reclaim the piece of our possibility for being in existence at that moment. And there comes this greater aliveness, greater presence, greater joy in the recognition. When we can get its source, is simply an error of attention. It's simply an error of clinging to something for the wrong reasons. Simply an error of making something important that isn't important any longer or not relevant and is now in the way of the misplaced identifications or attachments, the misplaced structures of trying to fix other people or make them better, the things that keep not only ourselves but unwittingly enables other people to stay as they are. To discover what is it in us that resists change, that doesn't want to let go, right? To let go. What you're doing is you're going to find out that you're holding on to something. And you're taking it to bed with you. You're waking up each morning. Some days the clench is harder. Other days it's less hard, slides a little bit. You discover that you're hanging on to something. And you can feel, oh, that is why I feel so miserable. What if I let go? No, I can't let go. If I let go, I'll die. If I let go, I'll lose her. If I let go, I won't be able to get this. If I let go, I don't know what will happen. I'm hanging on to this because I think I need it to exist, to be. So when you let go, you begin to let go. Something starts happening in you that the who in you doesn't know how to be with. It wants to regrasp. It wants to bring it back. Letting go, this discovery of what you are, to discover the part of you that's clinging and the nature of that clinging and the structure and the belief and the emotional content that has us continue to grasp, then gives us authority over it and we can release. And what do we release into? Release into something we do not yet know because it's self-evident, but we haven't been able to see it before. It's so obvious, but we haven't even been able to recognize that it's something we can trust, although that's a terrible word, something that we can allow. And then we fall back into that essential quality of what we are more fully. Learning to have faith that letting go is the right action. Learning to discover that letting go of what we think we need is the means by which we can answer this question. The means by which we can come to the authority of our reason for existing. That we can discover the true miracle and joy of existing. And that there is this inherent structure, beings, forces, all about us, just waiting for us to come out of our self-imposed exile, to come out of that error that we keep unwittingly perpetuating. And they come in when we let go. You let go, you let God. You let go, you let truth. And there we are. So what's in the space right now, what you're in touch with right now, if you become aware of what this will help you let that sink in. Let it take some time with this. Step out of the listening modality and go into the being modality. And just feel what your body is doing right now. Notice your breath. Notice the quality of aliveness. Noticing what rises. Part of what arises in this process is that which has been stuck in sorrow or separation for a long time, so it could be disturbing. Breathe into it. Go inward. Feel what that is. So this is what's there all along. For some of you, you can appreciate what's come up for you. This is the one self-evident truth we want to learn to attend to. This is the truth of what we are. And one of its names is love, bliss, peace, spaciousness, stillness, a dropping away of past and future. Now, nowness, thisness, isness. A million names for this quality of this self-evident truth. So welcome. Welcome home. Welcome to what you already are. Welcome to this. Okay. You're going to bring yourself back into your ordinary, miserable self, if you like, or into the best version of you, whichever you choose. So this part is an opportunity for bringing forward something that's there for you, a question or something you feel you would like to share.
Oh, thank you. We never welcomed our crowdcast
people.
I think they got it.
Yes, but it's just nice to include you all.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you
we
for
have a
joining us here in Boston or
Yeah.
outside Boston.
There we go. Better
Yes.
late than never. So welcome.
And Brahmananda, are we set up so that people can do questions through the computer?
Yes, there's an ask question button, and if a question pops up, I will.
Let us know.
Okay, cool.
Otherwise, what we ask, if you have a question or something you want to share or something you want to address, then just come to this chair and pick up the microphone and go for it. And I don't know, I guess it's the air conditioner.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's cool, if I'm feeling it's cool.
It
Yeah.
keeps going back and forth. It was real cool. Yeah, it's
I
on.
can't
It
tell
just
if it's
cools-
me or the room.
It's the room.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's we get a consensus.
Yeah.
And either we can get to a consensus of what's so, or we can get to an agreement of what's so.
Whatever works.
Those who think it's too cold outnumber the people who think it's just fine, then too bad. That's how we've done it up to now. Okay, who would like to come forward? All right, Suzanne.
Hey, Suzanne.
It's really good to see you. Yeah.
Of
Mhm.
course.
Yeah, go ahead.
Friends,
Yeah.
I have a question that's bothered me for years.
Okay.
And it's about sleep at night. Sometimes when I meditate at night, I get into this space that's quite enlivening, actually, and open and vast. And then I feel like I need to go to sleep now, and I don't want to. So I go to bed, and there's something laying there that wants to stay conscious. So I remember years ago when I was working with Byron Katie, she would say that we don't go to sleep at night, we pass out from mental exhaustion.
Close to truth, yes.
Yeah. So wanting to remain conscious and living a conscious life, I would like to hear your take on sleep.
Okay. All right. So first, let me ask about what in you has made a decision that you need your sleep when you're having this alive, conscious experience happening.
And it's a story that I'll be tired the next day if I don't get it.
There we go. So there's the story.
Yeah.
So the story isn't relevant. The story is a story. We give them to children to read for entertainment. But when it comes to actually living life, the story is not the way to go to bring, because you're bringing a prejudgment about how you'll feel tomorrow. You're actually, and by doing so, to a certain extent, you're bringing that into existence. So letting go of the story has a couple of steps to it. One of it is to be willing to be tired tomorrow in order for this to happen now. That's one thing, which is choosing the now rather than a possible future. The possible favorable future, well, if I get my sleep, I'll feel good in the day. But you're feeling good right now. And the universe doesn't work that way. Things are constantly in cycles. Who knows? Tomorrow could be really shitty. You should get the joy you can get right now. Like how you are tomorrow, you know? You show up at work or whatever you have to do, and you're cranky. All right, so you're cranky. Enjoy being cranky. So there's one attitude, is to let go of the story and then let what has come have its full expression. Not try to make it go away or fix it or make it any different. So I don't sleep at night, but long ago I recognized that a part of this quality of the awakening of consciousness, it never goes to sleep. And when we're able to access that periodically to the cycles of the planets, that quality of the delight of being becomes available in that quality of awareness. So we shed the structures of our separative self, and in comes the ocean of oneness and love. And that's what's happening. that for you might be, or that night at least, was a favorable cycle. So the characteristic of any spiritual experience is you want to allow it to have its full time with us, rather than cut it short or try to unnaturally perpetuate it. Although sometimes it's appropriate to unnaturally perpetuate it, it will move more quickly that way. And even though you don't get maybe the 6 or 8 hours sleep you prefer, you'll get 4 hours and be fully rested. Because what you're holding on, what you're trying to prevent, is not truth. So that's really the solution. The other part of it is that just getting used to not sleeping, that willingness to accept that you don't need to sleep. So my take on this is that sleep is a byproduct of the effort it requires to hold a separate self in place, to protect itself, to make sure it gets what it wants, so it's in control. So we carry the stress of that. And I call it existential stress, as if you're constantly treading water. Sleeping is when you can quit treading water and fall into the ocean of relaxation. And that, for most human beings, because the awakeness isn't enough, they go unconscious, and they call that sleep. But for an awakened human being, it's actually an opportunity to dive into other domains of experiencing and knowing that we can't access because we're so habituated to the superficial, sensory-based, mind-based external world. So you actually could discover domains of experiencing that you you wouldn't be able to if you keep this story in place. That you could start discovering that as you transition from this kind of very awake, very live, very much in your Rajasic kind of in your body kind of thing, that as it quiets, as you allow it, as it quiets, you could enter into domains of experience that would otherwise not be available to you. So it's uncomfortable. The body is habituated to sleep. And I had to go through some months before my body could learn to be with that when this first started coming. But I made it my conscious effort to try to learn how to live without sleep in the formal way. And what I discovered is it wasn't difficult at all. And actually, in the history of man, laying down fully, it was really the case. You know, I saw the monastery that Francis of Assisi lived in Assisi. And I walked into the room and all the beds were like couches. They had a slope and a flat place. And that's how the monks slept. It's my experience that the more our body is vertical, the more likely this awakened quality of ourselves can travel into those domains of what we call dream and sleep and discover qualities of being and information and experience that wouldn't otherwise be available to you. This is very helpful because it gives you some confidence that the assumptions that you've taken about who you are and what you need and what's important is not necessarily true as you get more and more opportunity to experience those things. Now, they may not happen, but that is one of the options that at this stage of your journey is likely to want to start happening. Because you've come to an awakening, a quality of being that is actually now you're bringing into your life, but that the life you're bringing into is also determining how far you can go with this quality of awakening because of the habits from your old life. So you need a new structure, a new kind of like organization of how you live and how you spend your time and what's important, so that this awakened quality that has come to you can continue to expand in its depths and in its fullness.
I started reading or listening to your tapes on the Mother Book again.
Good.
And started going through that. I just spent 5 weeks in Arizona with my mother with an injured back, and I was like her caretaker. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was like a retreat because I took advantage of all the things.
Being out of your life. Yeah.
That, but also watching where my conditionings come from.
Good.
It was like astounding. It's like, I'm really not an original at all.
You were a new version right from the beginning. Yeah. Yeah.
So actually, it was really kind of cool to see that. I
got
guess, you know.
Yeah, I got it. And really the rest of your life is this constantly uncovering of what was the so that you never saw before, the unexamined assumptions and the be able to have a perspective, an objective perspective on what it was that before you thought was true, or what you would put in the way of what was
Some
true.
other energy's been coming in, or grace or something, really, with listening to you again
Mhm.
with that book, was coming in really strong. And that's one of the things that was happening at sleep was I got the message, what, about 9 months ago, that I needed to really get a handle on my mind. You know, the quiet mind was like my goal, if there was one, to really understand it and what's underneath it, what's moving it, because it's been very busy all my life. So with this, listening to those again and listening to your comments and things.
You're more in your body, more in your heart.
Definitely. And I was taking care of me, and
Yeah.
and taking care of her wasn't me taking care of her. It was just happening.
Right.
And I was never tired or drained or
There you go.
bored or anything. It was just great. Like every moment was just so alive and real.
All right. Perfect.
So I really appreciate your recordings and the
All right.
videos
Well, I'm
as
glad
well.
we'll support you this way. And I
Yes,
do
yeah.
know that this particular question, this particular one, is just one that's coming up for you. But
Yeah.
what part of what happens on the spiritual path is what we call samadhi. So there's meditation. What happens with meditation? When meditation, we have to practice it first because it's not natural to the human vehicle. You have to train your consciousness to sit still and try to be quiet and try to be silent. And you use your mantras or your techniques or your visualizations to do so. So you're not meditating, you're working at meditating. That's like practice of meditation. But there comes a time when that practice starts paying off and it's less effort. And you start finding yourself coming into relationship with a quietude of your own being, where all that other having to do falls away, and you start getting some calmness or some silence. And when these comes, it's very noticeable in contrast to your usual way of being. You're starting to unveil what's already self-evident once you get out of the habit of you enough, and meditation is one of the avenues. So as this deepens, you start moving into relationship. The who in you starts moving into the relationship with the what of you. And something of the what of you starts permeating the who of you. And that's what's bringing the silence and the peace and the happiness that comes from meditating. When that comes, then there's a tide switch. You start looking forward to meditation. You might say that as you go through your day, the meditation overtakes you. And it can do it at very strange times, including when you're just going to bed. And what you do with that is you allow it. You allow it. Once you've awakened spiritually, then the first thing you have to do is establish what you've awakened, what has awakened. You have to establish your relationship to what has awakened in the who of you, the parts of you that still are not awakened. So this permeation of what you've awakened to has to come into the who of you in such a way. So when it comes, you want to give it all the time you can. You want to let it go into the vibration of your body. You want to feel it, not try to cling on to it or make it stop it. You want to let it just have its time with you. And then it goes into the cells of your body. Then it goes into your nervous system. Then it starts teaching the glandular system how to relax, to let go. And it creates this greater and greater capacity for the who of you to come into relationship to the what of you. Samadhi is the same movement. It's consciousness becoming, the surface consciousness becoming absorbed in the source of consciousness. So the more this can happen, there will be moments where the absorption of the who into the who will dissolve in the ocean of what. And then when that happens, those are moments of samadhi. Each moment where that occurs opens a door, opens passageways. It starts teaching your body how to have that as your lived experience. The body starts getting deprogrammed. It starts learning how to hold emotional, mental, physical events of its history, how to let go of those and allow another way to come into existence. So this is what's happening to you. What you're experiencing, what you're conscious of, which is the bliss, the love, the connection, is the demonstration that there have been moments in your day, you may not, or your night, you may or may not know it, where you've been in this absorption. And this absorption is penetrating into your system more deeply. Now, because we are organized to sleep at night instead of sleep in the day, it's very inefficient to go to work when you sleep in the day. Going to work when you're asleep is very difficult, if you've noticed. So the nature of this is that we tend to do this at night, even when we awaken spiritually. So without knowing it, at night, we're going into states of absorption. It's only because we programmed ourselves through our human life to have that be the time slot. In fact, what I ask people to do who come to me, who are where Susan is to open your day so that it can find its own cycles in the course of your life. And then that starts breaking up the structure of sleep at night, wake at day. And you then start being able to move in a more continuous relationship with what's coming to you. So that is my suggestion to you, is that, and to all of you, is that should that be happening, allow it to have its time. And if your life doesn't allow it, change your life. So it will. There's nothing more important. Or fulfilling, yes.
That's right.
Fulfilling is important in this strategy.
Very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Good question. All right. I'm only going to be here today and tomorrow. I'm going to ask a question. You might as well do it now. Who is it? Oh, no, I didn't bring it. The qualities of a guru. Was a quality of a person who knows the self. It was from Ramana Maharishi, small little book about a disciple was asking him questions and he answers questions. And one of the qualities of an awakened guru, oh damn, I lost it. I had it, it was so great. We'll see. See if it comes back or not. Just went through and went out. Okay, who else? Yeah, I led you up and let you down. Set you up and then no conclusion. Whatever you bring forward will further what's coming in. I remember what it is. I remember what it is. Love, equanimity, equality, seeing everyone as equal, and courage. Courage is where we step out of the box. Courage is when we break out of what it is that's currently limiting us. And we can choose what we would call courage. We can choose it without knowing how we're going to do, because it wouldn't require courage unless you didn't know what you were going to do. It wouldn't require courage if you knew what you were going to do. That would be a prompting. So courage comes from what you are, trying to make room for itself into who you are.
Didn't we just have
Hey.
this question?
No, come forward. I had someone who wants this.
Well, I wanted to say something,
Yes.
but come on up. Please.
There you go. Welcome.
What I was going to say about courage. You and I were having this conversation the other day about people who participate with you long term, that it takes a lot of courage to do that.
Right.
So,
yeah, a continuous courage doesn't
Yeah.
become courage anymore. It becomes surrender. Okay, what's your name? Henry.
Is this on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you are.
Good.
Henry, welcome.
Thanks. Well, it must be the what that's got me up here because the
Who doesn't know what the
who
hell's
wasn't
going
even
on?
going to come.
Perfect demonstration.
Whoa. Well, I had an experience yesterday, which, you know, as you were speaking about the many who's
Yeah,
in the
the many
stadium. Okay,
who's, right.
it's like yesterday I was like in the grips of one of the who's, you know, and it's a who that. Well, first of all, let me just put that in context. My stadium is peopled with who's that have addictions, and
Who is the what?
The stadium is peopled with who's that have addictions.
Probably that's all who's in the stadium. The addicted ones. All the rest have moved on to other stadiums. You might just say that why we keep on perpetuating patterns of behavior that doesn't work relative to truth is where they create an addictive response in our body, in our nervous system, in our emotional nature or mental nature. Yeah, right. Yeah. So it is in one sense true, but very true. So it's okay. Everything you say, Henry, I'm going to bring into the room. But I want you to keep your continuity for what you have to share because you're going in a great place.
That's fine. I can use the feedback. Yeah. That's why I came up. Yeah.
Good.
So yesterday, I think, well, I'm not going to make this long, you know, but I just want to describe the grip I was in.
Good.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
one of the addictions is gambling.
Oh, so a real addiction. Yeah.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, not just
a number of
psychological addiction.
real ones,
Yeah,
actually.
got
But
it.
we'll talk about this one for the moment because
All
this is the one that's alive at the moment. You know?
Got it.
So I got a 94-year-old friend, and she's from the South, and she loves the Kentucky Derby. You know, so I've got this addiction of gambling pretty much under control. You know, most of the time I like going to the casino to play poker. You know,
Got it.
that's
Managed.
It's managed, you know, and I don't go often. You know, I haven't been for a few years, actually, 2 or 3 years. So I used to like to go a lot. But anyway, the point is, it's manageable, you know. But every once in a while, it got me, and I can just see that I have no control now. You know, I really have to. I try to struggle with it, and it's just I can't do it. You know, I can't manage it. Okay.
Got it.
So this 94-year-old friend, she loves the Kentucky Derby. You know, so every year we do the. You know, I go to the track, not the Kentucky track. I'd love to go there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I go to the Suffolk Downs, and I can bet there on the Kentucky Derby. So I make bets for her, and her family members give me bets, and I go there and place their bets, and then I place my bets. Okay.
You really are into this.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
good.
yeah. But not that much. I don't go to the horse races a lot.
Oh,
I used to, but not anymore.
I guess it's just relative for a guy who doesn't gamble at all.
Oh,
It's-
okay.
yeah, it's quite impressive.
Well,
I'm hearing what is the nature of the gambling addiction.
yeah. So getting their bets and doing it doesn't create a problem. But my then trying to figure out my bets starts really stressing me out. You know.
Because you could lose, right? That's the thing about
Well,
betting.
you know, I'm not that worried about losing. The money. I don't put big. You know, I mean,
You want a big win. That's
I
what's
want a big
motivating.
win.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I want like the feeling of like I did it. You know.
Yeah, got it.
And let me say parenthetically that yesterday I picked not only, well, the winner was a favorite, you know, so, but I tried to bet against it, but I included it just in case.
Hedging your bet.
And I got
like a life strategy. Sounds like it.
So I got the,
I'll love you, and I'm going to keep this one over on the side.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was trying
Just
to,
in case,
I was,
you know.
so yesterday, well, anyway, yesterday I was my body was tired. And, I've been trying to pay attention to my body more and let it guide me,
Mhm.
And I overruled my body yesterday. I said, well, she's relying on me to get there, make the bets, and come back and watch the race with her on TV at 6:00 and so on. So I got so much time, and so I got to get to the track, take the subway, go to the track. It takes an hour to get there. Spend a lot of time figuring out my stuff, make the bets, and then come back. But all through this, I was suffering. I really noticed that the stress. I kept really wanting to be conscious of the suffering. Because first of all, I was not able to not go. So that was
you
step
felt
number
you
one.
really had to be there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Not
then
just
you're then struggling against the fatigue and the effort
right.
to be able to follow through with this.
So there's this drive and there's this wanting to follow through for the others, but mostly for me, I want to get a big win and like kind of prove to people that I know what I'm doing at the horse races. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Whoa, dangerous territory when you're gambling. Usually gambling is evidence you don't really know what you're doing.
Right, exactly. So anyway, I was really like never before paying attention to the suffering. I was sitting there, looking at my figures and all of that, and I was just noticing how painful it was, Now, normally I've experienced that before, but it's kind of like adrenaline. It's exciting.
Yeah.
But yesterday it wasn't exciting. It was just like pure misery. I mean, it was just like, please help me to hit big today so I never have to come back,
The right prayer. That's the right prayer.
my prayer was answered.
Yeah.
I not only picked the winner, I picked the first 2 horses, which pays you more. And then I picked the first 3 horses, which pays you even more. And then I picked the first 4 horses, which pays you even more in the big race.
You got it.
Now I didn't hit big bucks because the horse that won was the heavy favorite. Another horse was one of the big long shots, came in second, and I was rooting for that horse because it could have made me about $10,000, which is a big deal for
big
me.
haul.
Yeah. But, it turned out that I really liked the trainer of the horse that won, and I liked the jockey of the horse that won. So I was really happy for them, but I was suffering for myself. But I still made some money. You know what I mean? But I just wanted to bring it up as an example of the kind of grip I get into when an addiction hits. It's like I'm doing fine with it, I'm okay, and I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
Haven't had a drink for like 37, 8 years, something like that, and I needed a lot of help with that from AA and Al-Anon. But, I still miss it.
That's the nature of addiction.
That
It never goes away.
But I don't do it, you know what I mean? And in certain circumstances, it's really hard, but it's still, and I benefited from that. So I see the benefit, I become more conscious as a result,
Well, the most important thing is the recognition of the process, because enjoyment is not the problem. It's the attachment to the enjoyment that's the problem. The trying to control or make it happen a certain way is the problem. So enjoying winning, gambling, needs to be equal to enjoy losing in gambling. So then that kind of enjoyment is of a different order than the one that always wants to win. So it's because of the orientation of the ego, because we're all compensating for the error, the thinking we're not good enough, because look at all these other functioning grown-ups that seem to be running the world. I can't do that like they can, so I can't be possibly good enough, which is the first error, which then motivates us to be like them. So this is the nature of this, is that to be aware of the costs. And the secondly, Henry, your ability to have broken probably the primal addiction was alcohol. And that these are secondary addictions, or was gambling there part of the alcohol?
I'd say gambling was part of the alcohol.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the nature of this is it's almost literally the same thing. The certain neural passageways, Pavonian, get stimulated when there's a possibility of a win and simultaneously a possibility of a loss. That risking. And the risking is actually in itself a divine attribute. Good. Yeah, hang on there. Stay in the chair and I'll be happy with the rest of it. Do we need a seatbelt? Okay, so those are all kriyas. So these are just Henry's way of responding to energy. And so they keep opening up doorways and the energy comes in. So, by the way, the thing to be addicted to is your experience of divine. The ultimate addiction is to experience that peace, fulfillment, connection that can come from your relationship with divine. Doesn't have the juice of the alcohol or the juice or the electricity of the gambling. Those are the body. That's the body that keeps us hooked into that structure of addiction. It's not the intelligence. It's not even the emotional nature, although they can align with the addiction. Addictions are bodily programming, and some people are more inclined to be programmed for those kinds of payoffs than others. That's just how it is. But it's very interesting to notice that of the 5 Pandavas, the good guys in the Gita, the head of the Pandavas, Yudhishthira, was a gambler. He loved to gamble. And he's the one that gambled away the kingdom that led to the war that killed all of humanity. And he was a good guy. Yeah.
You know, one of the things with poker, I just love the interaction. There's nine players at the table plus a dealer, right? And there's this feeling of community.
Yeah, they're
You know,
all
even if you don't know somebody,
Yeah.
you don't know the people. After about 4 or 5 hours, you kind of,
your family.
your family,
Your
really.
family.
And there's people that you don't like being with. There's people you like being with. And I got to a point playing poker that it's not the winning anymore. It's more like I really enjoy it, and if I lose, I'm having a good
Chance to be
time.
in connection.
Yeah, but
chance to be-
I need the stimulation though. That's the thing. This body needs that.
got it.
What do you call it? That
Good.
it gets active. And then when I go to the casino, one time I played for 36 hours. I got up to go to the bathroom and drink water. That was it. And
That's impressive.
and I had some blissful experiences. It was like around 3 a.m. It was like, woo, it's like, and people are coming and going, new family rotating through the night, and I was like, woo, it was.
I got it. Eddie.
Yeah, but
As
then
long as you can afford it,
yeah.
you should just enjoy gambling.
Oh my! I never expected that one.
He got it.
It's not spiritual. I keep telling myself.
Where was I reading this just recently? Oh, sure, Aurobindo. Great, wise teacher from India. Has Savitri and synthesis of yoga and integral yoga and great teachings that are pervaded in many different arenas of spirituality. He says mukti is overrated. Enjoyment is the payoff. Mukti is that which allows us to have enjoyment. See, when we're awakened, we can enjoy without clinging. We can enjoy without judging. We can enjoy without making it a definer of our good or bad. But, it's the nature of what can happen is that in enjoyment, if it fails, if you get exhausted, if you get sick, it's okay. Enjoyment is willing to accept the consequences of the enjoyment. If you're in responsibility, then as far as spirituality is concerned, you're not adding to the problem. You may not be freeing yourself from the problem, but you're not unnecessarily adding to the problem unless that enjoyment can take over your life. So the secret here is enjoyment occurs, because you've been able to restrain the indulgence. The restraining of the indulgence is the art. So when you otherwise allow the indulgence to take you over, you start feeding the indulgence and the enjoyment starts diminishing. So gambling once in a while will be enjoyable. Gambling all the time will start feeding the error in which that particular kind of enjoyment, the addiction, is coming from. So it's the restraint. Now, some things like gambling aren't as addictive as alcohol. I mean, alcohol, you go in the bar and you have the drink and you reactivate, like right down to the very beginning, that whole structure of the addiction because you got such a high contrast. And then you get drunk all the time and there's no sense of enjoyment in drinking. And in gambling, it's the same thing. You do it all the time. What I think was showing up in that moment where you were felt to make this bet with this friend from Florida is that you were going down an avenue of which is mostly social out of your relationship with them and their affinity, and you're wanting to be part of their whole process and what happens to you in that arena where you can be in a stadium full of people all doing the same thing. That's what human beings love to do, is they love to have a sense of their greater self through others. I was once lived near a stadium, the University of Washington. I was not far from the stadium. And when they had their events, where everybody's yelling and screaming, there were periods of time where everyone was all speaking at once. And there was this energy that went through me. I mean, I'm just still a college student. I wasn't awakened. And the nearest thing I could say is the voice of God. They're all excited all at once. And there was just this huge transmission, like one sound that came out of it. So there's something about that connecting to other people that is also there that you can get addicted to. And so the gambling simply becomes the instrument by which you can experience or feel that connection. So therefore, it's not the gambling, it's the connection. And the connection is probably what gives you the greatest juice. The payoff has got its own juice, but the sense of connection with other people while you're doing it is why the payoff in the gambling counts for something. I watch people in the gambling because I live in Nevada, right? Every restaurant you go into has got some machines. Yeah, everywhere you go. And I watch what it does. It's when people are in the addiction of gambling, they can't stop. There's no payoff. They're in this kind of trying to activate those set of cells that get activated with the addiction are now numbed and dull. Same with alcohol. And they're just blindly drinking. Then the drinking prevents them from knowing that they're actually miserable.
The combination of alcohol and gambling, like people at the track are all drinking,
Yeah, that's right.
And if you look around, you see them. You don't see happiness there.
No, it's all
you really don't. I mean, you see people excited when they're winning and really miserable when they're losing, but fundamentally, you don't see you see a lot more happiness around a poker table than you do at a racetrack.
Yeah. Relatively speaking, because it's more dynamic, more changing, more intimate.
Right.
But the thing that I recognize about gambling is a couple of things. One, it has a certain component of courage that comes to it. If you're not addicted to gambling, then you're going to be putting your $100 or your $50 or whatever you're going on the table. And there is this risk, right? There's a part of us that loves risk. There's a part of us that loves to be on the edge because that seems to have some greater proximity to truth than the part that is kind of content.
I need that being on the edge. But I always criticize that. I feel like it's something that should be more peaceful, so I try to be peaceful and push down wanting to be on the edge.
Okay. So it's the moderation, and moderation is what makes it an enjoyment. The restraint is what makes it enjoyable. So as long as you keep that in place, it's going to keep you alive 10 light years longer than otherwise.
It does feel very enlivening, actually. It gets my juices flowing.
Yeah, I can see it. You can hardly get up here, but you're very alive when you're sitting in your chair.
I want to give somebody else a chance. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. How did you do that before? Right. Right. Yeah. Or a kick. Okay. Yes. Come forward.
This is my first introduction to you, and I really don't know much about you.
Okay. What's your name,
Here,
though?
I'm Marianne,
Marianne.
and I'm here on a dare from my friend
gamble.
Paul. Yeah. What I did read was that you had sort of a spontaneous awakening,
Mhm.
and I want that.
Yeah, well, it's very straightforward. I got it. Okay. So
Because I'm tired of trying.
you're tired of trying to awaken. Yes.
So I want a spontaneous awakening.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is, Marianne, is to show you that you are already awakened.
Great.
Okay. So how did you become interested in being awakened? What?
Many, many years ago, I had a traumatic event that was a spontaneous awakening.
Okay, done.
But I've lost it.
Yes, that's the nature of the awakening, is that we realize there's such a thing as awakening. The rest of the time is the anguish of not being able to be awakened. All right. And that is the awakening penetrating into the unawakened parts of ourselves. So you're actually quite awakened. How your ability to enjoy that or recognize that is because of the parts of who you are that you haven't been able to dismantle, that are veiling you from knowing that you're actually living in a different vibrational frequency than you were back then. And that everything that you've been going through has been the means by which that awakening can integrate into your life. Now, as it integrates into your life, it seems like it's the same old me, but it's coming from a different place once the awakening happened. Now, I can tell you why you can't access this part of you that is awakened is the lifestyle. You have to have a life that keeps you in remembrance of that awakening. And the way you do that is to have a regular spiritual practice that supports your awakening. That means it has to be what works. So, I mean, there's a whole number of ways we can go on this. Part of it is, what is your current circumstances? Well, are you married? You're alone?
I'm single.
Single? You've been single for a while?
Yeah,
Okay. You have your own place, or you live with
I have my own
place? Okay. And you work?
I do,
Okay.
but I'm about ready to give it up.
About ready to give it up. So you could retire.
Yeah.
You could retire. You have children?
No,
No children? Existing family members, parents, siblings?
2 sisters.
2 sisters. Okay. All right. What are you doing to support yourself spiritually right now?
I think the only thing that I feel it comes from the kind of work that I do, that I have encounters with people, that I'm a social worker in a cancer center.
Okay.
So my interactions with people will, on occasion,
Bring access to that quality of relationship, of love or compassion, right?
Yeah.
So that's when and the awakening that you had, was it in the heart or was it in the awareness?
I guess in the awareness.
Okay. You want to describe it? What happened?
The initial one?
Yes.
I was away on vacation, and one of the people I was with dropped dead, had an aneurysm. And I went into a state of shock, and I kept repeating, bring her back. and I heard what I perceived to be God's voice saying, hold on, wait a second, let me check. And I hear her voice saying, no, Marianne, calm down, I'm okay, but I'm concerned about you. You got to calm down. And I sat down on the bench. This
How
was
did you
in
feel once you got
Mexico.
that?
I felt completely calm until my rational mind
Came over.
took over and said, I'm having auditory and tactile hallucinations.
The mind.
She's dead, and I've lost my mind.
Got it.
And then I went back into panic mode again.
Got it. So that was a glimpse. Have you had other awakening?
Not as profound as that.
Mm-hmm. Well, pretty
there,
dramatic.
there was one time I did when I was guided through inquiry of who am I, and I had for a nanosecond an experience of no body, no existence, just nothing.
Got it.
But it
Just
went
was
like
fleeting.
that. Yeah.
Got it. So how are you feeling being in this room?
Nothing special, quite honestly.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, nothing
Yeah.
special.
Right. Well, we're looking to come to what is preventing you from accessing your awakened state. So part of what you do is you first look to what that looked like in your experience in your life.
Mhm.
Okay. So the second thing.
So I have to say something. I
Yeah.
think, and I've said this to Paul, that I've come to the realization that I'm addicted to drama. And I think because I want to reclaim that awakened state again.
Is the drama a self-created drama about what's wrong with me?
Well,
About
it's where I'm working.
so you create the circumstances
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
keeping you
It's just like constant drama.
right,
It's a lot of
right.
drama.
So and it does. It's kind of like gambling. It keeps you stimulated. It keeps you interested in life.
Mhm.
Because one of the things awakening does is you lose interest in life. It falls away in its importance.
Mhm.
And the ego doesn't know how to live life without being interested in life.
Mhm.
So there is a period where we have to go through where life becomes a desert, where there's just nothing in life we're interested in. Nothing gives us satisfaction. Even though everything is there, we're not getting any enjoyment from it. This is a stage of the journey by which we empty out the addiction of being a human being and having our stadium and the field in which all the players can play. The human whoing we're addicted to. Because at one point, we're just a virtual reality. This is just a virtual reality for a quality of our I amness, where we're in a body where all these things can happen. We're a 3D virtual reality, which is very, very compelling and convincing, so much so that we forget that we're the witness or the experiencer of this. So it's addictive. And therefore, we use the addiction as the organization to stay alive, because actually we enjoy the game, even if it's horrible, even if it's miserable. It is the nature of the quality of us that enjoyment includes suffering as well as happiness. And that the two together, it's this duality that makes this universe, this plane of existence, this plane of consequences so interesting. So that's what you're working with. The willingness to give up the addiction of the stimulation of drama would require, you would have to train the ego to learn to enjoy the addiction of being connected to its being, to the what it is. So you have to have practices daily in your life that keeps connecting you to that quality that's an approximation to what you've known in the past of awakening. And that is a number of things. Like in your nature, it could be chanting. There could be a chant or a mantra that you could sit and do for 20 minutes or 10 minutes and then be quiet, and you would begin to feel what's come to you. Because I can already see you already have it. You're just not paying attention to it. What you'll have to do is set up a practice or a connection or like a relationship with a teacher, where this becomes more accessible to you. And then it becomes more important over time to the addiction, to the work that you've been keeping and going. So that's the opportunity. What happens when we have a daily practice, something we can do ourselves that allows us to connect to that lost part of ourselves? And you want the things that work. Initially, they may not, though. All of these early techniques, meditation, chanting, breath control, yoga, any of these things can be difficult at first. So you have to go through about a 2-month, 3-month period of doing the practice, even if you're not getting any benefit. If you do it for 2 or 3 months, then you start getting the benefit. Then you can start noticing how satisfying this can be. And you can actually start enjoying parts of your life more fully that are worth enjoying. And you can also begin to let go of the things that you kept doing that really didn't bring you enjoyment anyway, and start bringing in things that brought you enjoyment in the process. So it can actually be a way of enhancing your relationship with existence. So the ego becomes a collaborator. It becomes interested in meditating. It becomes interested in listening to the teacher. It becomes interested in participating with other people, where this is the important thing. This is how you neutralize the habit of your life. Yeah, you got it right. It's your addiction to drama and story. That whole arena, which every human being has, and every human being to some extent has been addicted, if it's not currently, it's still addicted to. But there is this other quality in you that brought you here, that's put you into this chair, that's allowing you to be your authentic self with me and to hear what I'm saying. So I'm going to suggest that what has just happened is going to have, it's like planting a seed. Just planted a seed. And I'll tell you where it is. It's in your heart. A seed has been planted in your heart. If you pay attention, you'll feel this love grow in you, this sense of longing grow in you. And you will find from that a new way to live that will bring forward that awakening that you can't access yet. So pay attention to your heart right now.
Okay.
Are you noticing anything there?
I'm just having images of my Catholic childhood coming forward.
Yeah.
I went to Sacred Heart Academy. So
Okay.
the burning
So there's
heart.
the burning heart.
Yeah.
Not bad. It's actually a good analogy. So that connection with Jesus or Christ or God or Mary or any of those things that can be your access point. What any one person is a demonstration of the one principle of God or truth or the manifest impersonal what that we all are a part of, the oneness. So it's perfectly appropriate for you to feel that old devotion. Did you feel devotion when you were a child?
I think I was brainwashed when I was a child.
Yes, but did you feel Did you feel a feeling for God or love of Jesus or love of Mary?
Not especially.
Not especially.
Not genuine.
All right.
No.
All right. So it's
just
programming. All right. So then whatever this is, it's not going to go along that avenue. Your mind won't let it. So let it be. Unfortunately, I would wish it wouldn't require the death of a friend for this to happen again. So that would be a kind of a tough daily practice to get away with for very long before you would be arrested. But so let's find something else that can give you access.
But I am working with dying people.
Oh,
every
okay, that's
day,
good.
so-
Woo, scary. People just die around you then. All right, well,